Good evening and welcome to That BS Show. I'm Kimberly and this is my beautiful host, Sara Jean, and we are coming to you as far behind the fan as possible these days. I mean, I'd like to think that we're a little behind the fan, but boy, this last week has kind of shown that maybe with weather, maybe there isn't a behind the fan. And that's kind of I don't know, just a little revelation, certainly for me. I didn't have a hurricane wiping out Asheville on my bingo card. And now it looks like we're headed, not us, but in Florida, Milton looks like it's something that like is the biggest that the weather can even. What was it? Something the atmosphere. It's a real small eye of the storm or center of the hurricane, but it's picked up to I think Cat 4 now. I think is where they're at. And boy, what a
What is the highest it goes? Cat 5? Is that like the highest? I'm
I
not
think
sure.
so.
I've never
I
been in
think
a
so.
hurricane or even like hurricane
Yeah, I mean,
territories.
I'm not in hurricane territory, but boy, the
Well,
devastation.
neither was North Carolina. So
Well, yeah,
yeah.
but God, what devastation. I I I have actually, I think on the last show, did I say that I had a friend that hadn't, yeah, I think I'd mentioned it that I hadn't heard from her. I did hear from her. She's doing
I
well.
think you had just heard from her, if I
Is
remember
that what it was?
correctly. Yeah, you had just heard
Um,
from her.
she put out a message today saying that she got back to her shop and they have water and power. So she's very blessed in that area and in that way. But she said that a lot of people around her that have water and power now are really having a lot of guilt around it because so many of the people they know don't have that. So she's back to doing sessions, but she's really helping people move through survivor guilt.
I think survivor guilt is a real thing, and a lot of people
Yeah.
might just like, oh, pshaw, like what is that? But it's like, no, I think it is a real thing, especially if you still know people that are struggling or
Yeah.
families that are hurting or families that still have missing loved ones out there, or like your area got power and water before another area, like
Yeah.
that is, there is such thing as survivor's guilt. Not that I'm saying that it is justified, because it's not, you know what I mean, but that's just like, I feel like that's just people of high character, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
they will, it's always if not, I'm not saying if you don't feel survivor's guilt that you're, but I mean, I feel like that's kind of just a natural thing to feel so blessed and then feel guilty about it because there are still so many people suffering, and
Yeah.
it's just the
There's
nature
still
of
people that
reality.
haven't even been found or like haven't even been moved from they're alive, but they can't get out. And some people, as I understand it, still haven't even gotten nobody's come to them yet.
Or they don't have a way to reach people, you know, maybe they did, or you know, it's just if you don't have power, I mean, even pretty much everything, cell phone and any of that stuff, if you don't have any sort of little like solar power, like pack or something to
Mhm.
charge, even like, you know, even those little things, they don't have capacity to charge a huge supply, but enough for a cell phone. But it's like,
Yeah.
that's why they say bug out bags are so important, because it's
Mhm.
just like something by the door in the closet that you grab, because otherwise you're thinking about your cat, your dog, your spouse, your child, you know what I mean, like
Yeah.
it's the last thing on your mind to grab that survival pack. And
Yeah.
especially if you are literally fighting for your life in that moment, or your
Yeah.
house was
That's
automatically like washed, you know, it's
yeah. That's why, just having uh a few things in your house like that are you could last a few weeks on, like after I know last week we talked about the strike, the dock workers strike that didn't last very long, but it did. I went out and got enough beans, like I just stocked up on a few things in my pantry that I know I don't have to worry about it again if something happens. I restocked my area, and I didn't go out and get toilet paper or anything, but that
no, me neither. But
everybody at
I
Costco was.
I didn't go to Costco, but I even went grocery shopping 2 days ago, and, like, the toilet paper aisle still looked really empty, and I just, like, shook my head. I'm like, "I don't know, like, toilet paper is not the first thing for survival. You have some rags, you wash them, you bleach them, whatever, like, maybe I just feel
Take a
differently. My
shower.
mom my mom loves boasting how she used cloth diapers on me and my brother 'cause she's such a hippie, you know, and I guess it's like a service actually that would come and pick them up and drop
Yeah,
off new ones, and I was like, "What? Really?" Like, I didn't even know that, but it kind of made me feel like, I don't know,
yeah,
just knowing how much, like, chemical disrupting hormones
yeah,
are in regular diapers. I'm like, this is before any of that information came out, and my mom was very, like, I guess, adamant about her cloth diapers for her babies, you
yeah,
know, but it's like, if did they have toilet paper 80 years ago? Like, what do you think people did? They didn't use their
yeah,
hand despite popular belief. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
it's
I just went
it's
out and got beans, and then every time I go to the store, they have the Mexican food section that has the
oh,
spices
yes.
that are super cheap.
Oh,
I just always,
in the bags.
yeah, I just grab a
Mhm.
few of those each time, and I figure if, yeah, I mean, I eat beans
Yeah,
for
I
a
grabbed
majority of
some
my meal anyway.
lentils, beans, I grabbed rice, I grabbed oatmeal, I grabbed, tuna fish and sardines,
Oh,
you
I got
know,
some tuna fish, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I don't even really like sardines or anchovies, but shit, if I was starving, you don't think I would eat a fucking can of sardines? Like,
Right.
shoot,
I think
you
I
know what I
still
mean?
have
Like,
some from when COVID, when the first toilet paper rush happened, and I have a bunch of sardines that are still in the cabinet. So I have those,
I'll
and
just
they're
never
so good. They're
remember.
so high. They're so. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, and it's
they're good.
important to like to date them too, you know, like people forget about these little food stores. Like definitely like first in, first out, rotate them. You got some
Yeah,
new ones, like move those ones up, put those ones in the back. That's really important too, you know, especially
yeah,
I mean, I actually I eat beans and lentils and stuff all the time.
yeah,
Like my mom's
yeah,
like she makes chili. I love making like refried beans with a little bit of rice. Like
yeah,
I'm about that. So I'll go through that
yeah.
anyways, you know,
And
but if
I've
you
been on the
don't,
bean protocol for about a year, and it was a huge game changer for me.
but for people who don't, you know, if they're a few months off from expiring, just go through it. Donate it to your local shelter who actually like cook for homeless people because like no sense in letting your stuff go to waste. If it
Yeah,
has 3 to 4 months left on it, go donate it somewhere.
go
You know what I
donate it.
mean? Like it's silly to let it
Yeah,
go to waste. And there are like food kitchens and stuff like that that will use it and utilize it. And yeah, but we were talking before we hit record, and we were talking about like the life straw, like water filtration, um, just how big that is. And I'm sure a lot of people just thought that they would never need anything like that. And, you know, a lot
mhm,
of people also don't know that you can you can drink like water like that. There's a way to even filter it yourself, but you do have to rolling boil for at least 10 minutes. If you don't know, that's how
mhm.
you prevent yourself and your family from dying of dysentery. Rolling
Yeah.
boil for 10 minutes and then you cool it off and drink it.
Mhm.
Um, but if you know, you can survive a lot longer without food than you can without
Yeah.
water. So definitely
Have
life.
something like flint or something where if you can't get to electricity that you can start a fire, so you have your bug out bag that has all those essentials in it so that
Or
you
at
can,
least a few lighters that are like, you
yeah.
know, that are waterproofed or whatever. Even though, like, I think lighters after they dry out, you can use them, you
Yeah, I
know, but
guess you
still
don't need to
put them
get
in a
flint.
Ziploc. Yeah, I mean, like I have a vacuum sealer thing. I love that thing. Vacuum seal a couple Bic lighters. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's a lot of stuff that you can do, even like certain stuff for Tinder, like cotton balls and shit like that.
yeah.
You know,
And the
it's just
steel wool, I think there's
a
something that
steel
you can,
wool. Yeah,
yeah,
it's steel wool, not cotton. I mean, I think cotton might, but it's steel wool is what it is, I think. But
yeah,
you can use it as like the starter or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
even just watch a few basic survival YouTubes. I remember back
shit,
when,
get a few MREs even, whatever. If you have
yeah,
pets,
I have a whole cupboard full of the packed emergency
you
food
know, and like for the pets or whatever, get a little tiny case, like they're $20. Get a little case of wet dog food or wet cat food or
and
whatever,
just
you know, at least it's like canned food. You know what I mean? It'll be good
yeah,
for a year. Use it before it expires. But if not, you have a few cans of that.
yeah,
Shit, if worst comes to worst, I'm not saying anybody would want to eat dog food, but like, fuck, you could, if it's a okay brand, especially, like, would you rather starve or eat some? I mean, that's where your mentality and your mind has to be, you know.
Yeah,
But
and I think these sort of situations just are a good reminder that whether or not you've gone down a conspiracy rabbit hole or not, that it's just good to be prepared for an emergency, at any emergency, and have that. It brings a peace of mind for
yeah,
sure.
earthquake, fire, anything. Like, even if you
Anything.
don't live in a forest fire, your house could still catch on fire one day. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm,
it's just even the candles, like having candles and stuff like that. Like, I
mhm.
actually live in Vegas downtown in an old little house, and I have so many taper candles, tea lights, and votives because every single time it rains, literally every single time it's raining, if there's lightning, my power is going to be out for about 6 hours. It's happened
Oh,
so
wow.
many times that I can't even count because I've lived here for a long time. I can't even count how many times that it's happened. So I always have candles. I
And you
have
can get a
flashlights.
big tub of Crisco and put a wick in it, and that thing will last you for a very long
Oh
time.
shit. It just
Mhm,
burns like wax basically. It's
mhm,
oil. Yeah, it's oil.
mhm.
Exactly.
Yep, and you can watch a
Exactly.
video on that too. I don't think it's a special kind of wick. It might be. I haven't, but I've seen videos on it. But yeah, you can get a big tub of Crisco, and yeah, I mean,
I have a couple little lantern things. I have extra batteries. You know what I mean? Especially like, because I have my mom that lives with me. She's elderly and I take care of her. So, like, honestly, if it's nighttime, the power goes out, she'd probably just go to sleep. You know what I mean? But, if she has to go to the bathroom or something, it's dark. I don't want to worry about her tripping and falling
yeah.
and hurting herself, you know? So,
I always
I already
have.
do think ahead for stuff like that because, like
Yeah,
I said, I've been in. It's happened the first time it happened. I had no candles, nothing. I was like, ah, shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
put it on the old list. Like,
Well, that's why when I go to the thrift store, I always the first thing I'm looking for, I go straight to the candle section. So I have a ton of those tea lights. I have a ton. I always have candles going in my room. Um, so I always have a stock of those for sure.
I used to have a bunch of
And
those, like those Hail Mary candles that you get at like the dollar
as a
store.
matter of fact, I have two of them going right now because they're blue and I'm working on the throat chakra, but they don't have anything written on 'em. They're those candles, but they're just blue.
I try to get those anyways because I'm like really weird about scented candles just because of all the like
Yeah.
hormone disrupting chemicals. I mean, like if that's all you have, that's what you have. But I'm like big if
Yeah.
I do get scented candles or like natural essential
Yeah.
oil
Soy
candles,
or
like
yeah.
and then the essential oils, not like fragrance or
Yeah.
perfumes, you know, like I'm
Yeah.
just one of those. I mean, I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm crunchy, okay? Like
So am I.
I'm not trying
So
to
am
get
I.
no freaking hormone disrupting plastic chemicals in the atmosphere that I breathe in with my animals. Like I'm good. I'm good. I'll just get some unscented candles. Like
Yep.
that's
Unless, and that's what if they're at the thrift store and they're high quality ones, I'll get those. But if not,
and
I'm
sometimes
like,
I'll scent them myself. I'll light the wick, I'll let it get, a little burned down, and then I'll just add like lavender or grapefruit oil. I'll add it to the like candle wax that's melted and I'll like make my
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that's how
I'm
you do it,
crunchy
but
too. I even putting this bandana on tonight. My mom, um, my real mother, who passed away when I was 48, um, she always wore. She was such a hippie, and so whenever I do my bandana, it's always because I'm thinking of my mama.
oh, it's like homage to her.
Yeah, I just
I love
always
that.
feel like I just like I feel a little bit like she's with me or so. I don't know how to describe it, but
Channeling her energy, her style.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I
I
look
love
back
that.
at, I only have a couple pictures of her. I really don't have, but there's one where she wears her bandana like this, so it always makes me think I'm a mama.
Oh. And then Kim had a good
There.
idea
Oh, now
about
you're
the
gone. Okay, now
oh,
we're both back.
okay. I know yours skitched out for a little bit. I was just gonna say while we're on the survival thing, Kim had a good idea for people with livestock if you're ever put in any situation where you need to release them so that they can survive, like tagging them in a way so you could find them with your number. So if somebody else finds them
Mhm.
and they're not microchipped or something, like, do you want to explain?
Yeah, you can get a waterproof Sharpie and or maybe all Sharpies are waterproof. I don't know. But you can put it in a like a even luggage something waterproof, and then braid it in the tail, and then braid it in the mane, and write your number on the hooves. Now, chances are, if they're that might get rubbed off, but that is another way. So you've kind of covered your bases there, and then that way, when somebody finds them, because horses will, they will find higher ground. They'll keep your gates open. Did I send you that video where that it was like a wedding party that came and the owners
Yes.
fucking failed. They don't deserve those animals back. And I was just disgusted. The people that were at the wedding went and cut the fences open to get the sheep and the cows and the horses, or the horses and the sheep or goats or whatever it was. And those horses, when they hit the bank, could barely even stand up.
I saw that. They were so tired from swimming. Their legs were probably so tired. Have you ever worked out your legs so hard that like when you go to stand, they're like all wobbly, like, and you need to
Yeah,
like chill after leg day? Like I imagine that's what it was for them.
that's
And
what
these are
they, yeah.
animals. These are
And they
animals
were
that are on their
standing
feet
out
like
there. They just said, leave
24/7.
them. And those horses, they're just letting water rise. I can't even imagine the
Like
pain
why?
in
I
that.
don't understand the point of that. Like, so you think that the animal is going to die, but like, why not release them so that they might have a chance of survival? Because they're probably going to die definitely that way. Maybe even
Well,
the
oh,
other
for
way, but
sure.
at least they have a chance this way. At least they have a fighting chance of finding higher ground and getting away from the floodplain, you
I was
know?
just thinking, and all the beautiful videos of the mules that were packing. And I was telling Sarah that um, I have four horses and four um, four horses. And last year, when I no tuna, I started teaching them how to pack in a line, and so we're not 100% there, but we're working on once it fucking cools down. I can't get a day under 100 lately, or high 80s, 90. It's just, it's not fun to be out there doing that with them. They don't like it. The flies are still driving them nuts. They're not wanting to pay attention to anything I have to say. So but starting to get back on that, because if whether it's an emergency, or whatever else could go on in the world right now, my way of being of service would be able to pack my horses. Hold on, Petunia's not going to let me
Yeah.
go. This.
I had to take my dog out right before me and Kim and our little fur babies.
Okay, Her Highness just, I don't know what she wanted. Um,
I love Toonie. She's so cute.
she's cute.
Spicy. She's
Yeah,
adorable. Her little underbite.
yeah, she's a silly one.
I
But yeah,
know.
that would be my way of, delivering.
Contributing.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I
And
mean,
that's something that in these sort of situations, even talking about even anarchy, or it's like you have a skill. So if everything goes down, what is the skill that you can bring to your community? And then kind of, at least, well, in my old house, we knew the community a little. I was married at the time, and we knew a little bit more about our community than I do here, because I have less neighbors around me, but we know each other. And if something were to happen, then you share your skill set with everyone. And that's really anarchy in its own way.
and that's
You
also
know,
survival. That's like
it's,
old school
yeah,
survival and keeping your supply chain small, like knowing your neighbor that has chickens. You know what I mean? Knowing that you have
yes,
horses that could possibly, even if somebody had some sort of wagon that you could fix, you know what I mean? If like,
yep,
if cars were flooded out and now they won't
yep.
start, and it's like there's so much stuff. Like I think I sent you that video of just the community coming together to get mud out, and I read some comments and people were like, "Oh, well, this looks like construction crews to me." And it's like it probably is, but you have to remember about these small towns is there are a lot of people with little backhoes, little tractors. I
Mhm.
mean, one of my best friends, his parents live in Texas, and they have a whole fucking tractor
My
thing that
neighbor down at the
with
end of the road has a backhoe,
exactly.
and he's got like a scooper thing.
Yeah, they usually have a few different attachments, especially
Yeah,
as new ones, like new models come out. they usually try to sell off the old stock, right? So it's
Mhm.
like usually private auctions or private people buy them. So a lot of these people, especially if they have farms, land where they have to clear it
Mhm.
themselves, they just buy the equipment because it ends up in the long run being cheaper than having somebody come with a bulldozer every year to clear out this. But it just becomes more feasible to do it yourself. And most of these people know how to work the equipment. They've been working farm equipment like that
Mhm.
their whole life. And like
Mhm.
somebody in the comments was like, no, you could tell that this isn't like newer construction crews. They even like said the model that it was. They're like, I'm glad to see this old model R or whatever being put to use,
Yeah.
like because it is the community that's going to get there first and start these efforts first before contractors and government contractors. And they have to like sign contracts, and they have to like sign how they're going to get paid and all this stuff, and like all
All the
that
red
takes
tape.
time. All that takes time. So it's going to be
Mhm.
people in the community that have access to these tools. And it's just so funny because these are the people that are being demonized as like the rich, the haves and the have nots, and oh blah blah. But it's like these are the people that are willing to pull themselves up by their boots and get their hands dirty, boots on the
Mhm.
ground. You know what I mean? It's like that's why
Mhm.
half of farms anyways, and people say, oh, farmers are so rich, half of it is in equipment, and it's not even like accessible money. You know what I mean? It's in assets, farm assets, these tractors, these trailers. These things are so expensive, sometimes more than their house. $100,000 for some sort of
Mhm.
crazy farm backhoe tractor situation. You know what I mean? And they're still paying it off. So
Yeah.
on paper their assets look like they have all this money, but really it's all tied up in the farm. They don't have liquid assets. So it's
Mhm.
just like, but these are the people that are the heart and soul. These are the people that are going to get shit done. So this
Yeah.
whole they're going to prioritize equity. That's what they're saying. They're not doing utilitarian, which is, let's be for real, utilitarian is what does the most good for the most amount of people. They're no longer prioritizing utilitarian relief efforts. They're prioritizing equitable
Yeah,
relief
did you
efforts.
see I sent you that video of those people having the meeting where they were basically like,
Basically saying that these people don't matter because there are people I'm sorry, in this situation everybody is less fortunate. When
yes.
every single person has lost everything, everyone is less
I'm
everyone is
so
starting at
disgusted with
zero.
a good portion of humanity, right? I'm just disgusted.
I'm
I'm
disgusted
just
that
absolutely disgusted.
this is where the policy is now. Like these are where the policymakers' minds are. This is
Mhm.
the lawmakers,
Mhm.
the people who write the legislation. This is where their mindset is, and this is what we're
Mhm.
voting for. And also not to be like, it's in like the Appalachians, which not to be mean, there are like for sure a lot of, I'm sure, black folks that live there. Like that's where folk music happened. But let's be so for real. In a lot of these hollers and a lot of Appalachian mountains, it is like hodunk white people that have fucking lived there for generations, and you're not going to prioritize them because they don't have a rainbow flag, or like, I don't know,
Mhm.
it's a really weird mindset. So it almost seems like they're prioritizing their voters over everyone else who might not be as inclined to vote for the
Absolutely.
Democratic Party. Because let's
Mhm.
face it, the equitable, they're talking about um, minorities, immigrants, gay, lesbian, bi, trans, and disabled people. And by the way, a lot of these old people up in these hills are disabled. So I don't even know what they're
Mhm.
talking about. You know what I mean?
Have
Hey,
you seen
mom.
that show, Soft White Underbelly?
Oh, I love the soft white underbelly, but sometimes I can't watch it because it makes me cry.
I can only take it for just certain amounts of time. But he interviews. There's several people up from Appalachia that he covers.
Recent or like older?
He's been following him for years, and several different families and different people, and um, yeah, it's
Has
and
he like
then
highlighted them or something recently?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I should go look. I should go
Yeah,
look.
you'll see him. He just did something. He checks up on him every so often, and it's I guess like I said, I'm just so disgusted with so many things right now. The world, it does seem to be inverted, and as far as common sense and um I, it's the extremes of both sides that are just, but particularly the left. I don't know how people can't, I mean, I say this all the time. I don't know how. I do know how. I need to stop saying that. I just get in these moments where my brain just kind of like is so stunned at the reality of so many things. Like it's,
I get stuck on that too. Like, how could this be the reality? Like, pinch me, wake me up. Like,
yeah.
when
And, I've mentioned it a lot of times that I started, I had a radio show, started talking about this stuff. It was politics, sex, religion, the occult, spirituality. So I've been talking about these things a very long time. Um, it was 9/11 that I think officially got me digging, but I think I've always had a feeling of being on the outside and definitely not fitting into what the norm was supposed to be. And I, we didn't have a crystal ball to give the specifics of these things, but this was on the horizon. So it doesn't surprise me like that, but it surprises me that,
maybe no crystal ball, but also no internet at that time that like could broadcast these. It was like what radio, like how Alex Jones was on public radio, stuff like that. Yes, if you were tuned into that, but how many people even knew about that? So the fact that you were on the cutting edge of like your political awakening when 9/11 happened just shows that you were like already in tune to it, already knowing something wasn't right.
yeah, for sure. And yeah, that's a speaking of that, there's actually a couple things that I kind of wanted to talk about tonight that I have been talking about and now they're surfacing. The first one was back when we first started the show. I was saying that I'm really going deep into drugs and ritual and the history of the classicists from Greece and the history of pharmacia, Medea, the original, the original medicine, plant medicine.
The Medes. They also
Yeah,
were known as the Medes or
yeah,
whatever. Hmm.
and that had found a channel that I was watching as a classicist that does it, and that he was talking about that the Rome, the cult that won was the gay, was the ones that were getting the children prepubescent, and that there's actually there's some pretty interesting theories, even that Jesus and Magdalene, and that this whole kind of idea of getting, it's called Christed, but that it was getting young boys and girls before they were prepubescent, and that this is what's carried on. And I would argue that it's the Catholic Church, and that it's actually the foundation of all of it is well, like, okay, I'm bringing this up because there's a show that I was watching that's covering the Diddy stuff and brought up drugs and ritual, and that he's involved, that these are the rituals that go on behind the closed doors of like an eyes wide shut life, and then it trickles out through the music. I mean, these guys are all gay,
But
all of them.
also, right, like how this hasn't, like, people think that this is like something new. Like, there's nothing new under the
No,
sun. Like, these are rituals that have been played out over and over and over for millennia, like almost since the dawn of civilization, I want to say.
that's
You
it.
think about like the story of Sodom and Gomorrah and all that. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like the indoctrination, the how basically this destroys societies, this degeneracy that's like a vein running through society, and it's degenerative in
Caligula.
nature. Yes, and it kind of
Keep talking, I
de-
can hear you.
it degenerates, and it kind of demoralizes everyone that it touches. And then you also think about like MK Ultra, trauma and fear-based mind control. Like, how long have they known that when you traumatize children, it creates a programming in their mind where they can basically be kind of controlled, or the control, the problem reaction solution. it
Mhm.
creates a space there, and people want to think that we just learned about this or this is somehow new science in the last 100 years. I would stretch as far as to say is no, they've known how this trauma-based mind control has functioned for a very long time, which is why it's been going on for a very long time.
Mhm.
And it's also taboo. It's very hard to talk about. It makes
Mhm.
people uncomfortable because it is uncomfortable and it
Yep.
should make you uncomfortable, but that's not a reason to shy away to it from it. More than anything, we need to lean into this so we can
Yes.
really break this fucking spell
Yes.
that is
And
happening.
this is the power of generational trauma and keeping secrets, and how so many I just this is everywhere, and how many people just keep the secret, or they block it out, and but they just don't tell. Because and so what I am grateful for is that there are a lot of people, well, 3,000 was a thousand people, I think, called this attorney in Texas. They vetted them, and 120 now they're taking on the class action suit with 120 people. But there were 1,000 people that called in, if not more. It might have been more than that, but it was at least, I know it was at least 1,000.
Wow.
And yeah, so and then, and I've said it before too. Now, if women are coming forward just for a money grab, and it, that's they're just trash. But for the people that are coming for, I'm so happy that people are using their voices. And there's one girl, Allie Carter. She's someone that's been talking out for a while, and so I just hope she's safe. But that the truth is trickling out, and I still don't know that anything. They're talking big. It's getting a little bit more talk about J Lo, and that she's just kind of MIA. But her case, she flat out lied for the courts for that the shooting at the nightclub, and the woman that got shrapnel in her face. She said, I'll let you take it out of my face if you need it for court. Like, I'll go in and have it done because I want justice. And it's like, okay, okay. And all of them, all of
Yeah,
them.
they're complicit. They're complicit in the lies, even if
Mhm.
by omission, even if they didn't tell a lie, just the fact that they didn't come forward, or the, you know what I mean, the fact that they denied any knowledge of it, like that is a lie. That's lying by omission. It's like the thing when, like, oh, because someone didn't ask you, that means it's not lying. And it's like, no, like you knew. Like I feel that way, like if you have a friend, say, and you see her boyfriend out with another girl, and like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if that was my friend, maybe I wouldn't. If it was just like somebody I didn't really know, or like was like a random acquaintance, like maybe I wouldn't. But if it was my friend, and you're not going to tell your friend that simply based on the fact that you don't want to cause
Mhm.
drama, you don't want to get in the middle of it, I'm like, no, because I just think about myself. If that was me, I would want my friend to tell me,
Oh
even if
yeah.
it hurt. You know what I mean?
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
and if not, then it's like you're lying by omission. And then when it does all come out, and you either have to pretend like you didn't know, or then
Yeah.
what you would know, oh
Well,
yeah,
it's
I
like
did know and
CAA.
never
I
said
told you,
anything.
I think I told you last show, CAA was known for, it's really a lot of these model agencies, all these are,
They're fronts, right? That's like a
yeah,
front. Yeah.
yeah. And
I think it was Rose McGowan that said something about the CAA too, because Alyssa Milano's husband worked for CAA,
yeah.
and
So I
yeah,
was saying that before, and not that I'm the only one that's ever said it, but I was saying it before Rose McGowan came out on my other show. I was trying, like, and I've been trying to speak for a very long time on this. So I feel very, I'm just glad that it's being talked about. I don't,
it's
and
out in the
I,
open at least.
well, and I have many gratuitous stories that I could tell you about the people that are being talked about right now, but I have no interest in being gratuitous about it. There's one person that if I was approached and I knew that that there was a case, and I would go public with that. But if there's not any chance of anything big happening, it's there's I can just be of service in a different way by the work that I do with the horses, because otherwise it's just gratuitous me telling us a bunch of stories
Yeah, it looks
that,
like you're trying to bandwagon or get, like
yeah, and
views or
I
something,
have
and it's
no
like,
desire to do that. But there was actually, I have a connection to CAA, several that, well, let's just say there's a movie that's out there that was my idea and my pitch that got picked up and is a huge movie that was stolen from me. And that's when I really started to look into, like, I know a lot about CAA. I'll just leave it at that. And I know I have, like I said, like a lot of gratuitous stories that I could tell about a lot of people that are being talked about right now. And but I never saw kids. I was never dosed. Um, and what I did see though was a lot of women that were foreign that couldn't speak English that definitely had pimps and that their money was, and that's really because I escaped a pimp when I was, I think, 20. That I have a huge fucking hard on for wanting, like, fuck a pimp, right? Like, fuck a fucking, and this mentality that is now, and I'd even said it's like kind of this whole pimp hoe culture. And I mean, the biggest pimp is the government. We're all slaves to that. But I mean, that's the biggest pimp. But,
Yeah,
and you mentioned one time that,
they get a piece of all of our money.
yeah, if you're attached to the dollar, you're a whore. Like, you got a pimp. But um but I
Shit.
will say that there's some schadenfreude with a few of these people that if they go down, I it won't bother me one fucking bit. I've been waiting for this for a very long time, and I have no personal knowledge of anything with Diddy. But again, there are a lot of places all over that are trap houses. It's not just Diddy that's doing this. And there's also a couple places that I know I'm on camera and I show it to the fucking world because I rocked it. I knew fucking what was going on. And there's one story I really want to tell, but I can't. It really is would be too gratuitous. But I knew I was on
Maybe
camera
at a later date, y'all. Maybe
at a
some
later
other
date when it
time.
all goes down. But I knew I was on camera, one specific incident. And um, let's just say that motherfucker was embarrassed as fuck. I handled myself like it was good. And that is one moment that if I could be gratuitous, but it's just not my nature. It's not my nature. And but it does make me have a little inner smile and a little tickle and a little like, oh, I hope that motherfucker goes down. Oh my God. I hope
Said gotcha.
there's a few of them that, and there's one specific that was actually like I would truly
The
love
thing
to see
that's
go
really
down.
weird is that there's still people that are surprised about all this. And that's just so silly because it's like, hello, Shirley Temple put out a fucking
Mhm,
biography on her experience and how if
mhm.
you even watch Shirley Temple movies, they're
Isn't
as a
that
child, I loved them. Good Ship Lollipop. I loved that freaking movie. Then you watch clips of it as an adult, and there's like grown ass men leaning over and like pinching her little butt while she's like, ooh. And it's like, dude, she was like 5 years old. What is going
mhm,
on here? Like, why that innuendo?
mhm.
You know what I mean? And even
And
more,
Bob
it was
Hope
worse
was a
than that.
huge trafficker.
Damn.
All of them, not all of them, but
I mean, a
kind
big
of.
majority, especially of the bigger players, I feel like the people that seem untouchable, even like Harvey Weinstein, Oprah, you know what I mean? Like it's just
And Oprah's names being, they all, and I hope that they all, because to make it at that level, when you make it at that level, there's, some shit and you're involved in some shit.
you're
And
complicit in some shit, and that's why
mhm,
you're at that level, you know, because
mhm,
like it's a structure, it's a pyramid, you know what I mean?
mhm,
So in order to
mhm,
get further up, you have to know something about the people below you or above
mhm,
you, and then you rise above them, you
mhm.
know what I mean? Like it's a whole,
Yeah,
but it's
and
been
there
going
are a
on
lot of
since.
people, high
I mean,
execs, and there are a lot of
when
people.
were Shirley Temple movies? The 30s, the 40s. So that's how long
Mhm,
this has been going on. Almost 100 years. Hollywood has been like, there's been creepy, weird sexual
mhm,
stuff, sexcapades going on in Hollywood since the 30s or 40s. Like
mhm.
And here it's about to be 2025. You know, that's damn near almost 100 years of this shit. And people are
Mhm.
like, oh, we had no idea that this was going on in Hollywood. Like, God,
Well, I
like
think too that
go down at least one rabbit hole. Shit, I'm not saying you have to buy into every damn conspiracy, but like you don't even want to look at that at all. Like,
and I will say that a lot of, I mean, there are a lot of the actresses I know for sure were escorts. I mean, you just know this stuff living there. And again, I don't want to be gratuitous about things that I know because it's just it doesn't feel right. And the one thing that I've been interested in for all this time is just exposing it. I mean, I've had women come out from from the street that go to women that I work with, and then they come here for sponsored retreats with what I do with the horses. So I've been active in still speaking out. I just have never had the desire to have that be what again, I don't mean to belabor that, but it, it just doesn't appeal to me to be gratuitous
well,
and
it puts a big spotlight on you too, and I understand like why. I mean, I feel like some people want that. That's their point of
yeah,
doing it. They want the publicity, but it's like
yeah,
that's coming from a almost an inauthentic place. Even if it did happen, if that's your goal, it's like, but like just the fact that that isn't your goal, and you could probably light some people up, and then get like views on your cast or whatever. The fact that you're not doing it for you don't want to do it for the wrong reasons. You know what I
no.
mean? Like you want to be like calculated about it. You want to
Yeah.
be
And I'm more interested in solutions and talking about trauma and epigenetic trauma and breaking the cycles and talking about the Madonna whore complex and where this starts, where the trauma, how people can heal from these things and break cycles than having, any story that would, maybe for a minute there would be some dopamine hit and but then I could never sleep. So, but I am hopeful that even if I was going to say, even if none of them, like a few of them go down, I'd like all of them to go down. I would love to see um, this open people up and more people talking about their own traumas and healing their family traumas. I'm more interested in that. But even the border stuff with the kids, where people are like, that's not happening. Let them all in. It's like, do you know how many of these kids that are going across the borders? I mean, they're being trafficked. They're being trafficked. And I just watched another video on Puffy's bodyguard, or I can't remember who it was, but he bought 50 acres of land at the end of the border wall. And they were showing videos of them like promoting it and like what they're doing. Like, oh, we're going to bring kids out here for camp. There's nothing out there. There's not. And literally Diddy's house is like right by he has an island or something.
does
And
he?
yeah, and right by there is this piece of land right at the end of the border wall. Yeah, I've been watching some videos, or I found a lot of
Well,
broadcasters
and
that are
anytime I even hear about a camp, I get like major red flags. So I don't know if you've heard about like what happened with Paris Hilton, but she has been a big proponent that's
Mhm,
like spoken out. Her parents
mhm,
sent her to one of these like
yep,
behavioral camps to try to save her, right? And it
yep,
turns out that what they did, part of the therapy was ritual sex abuse and like beatings, starvation, just
yep,
absolutely horrible
yep,
trauma to try to train them to try
yep.
to try to what to try to
Those wilderness camps.
so whenever I hear of like a kid's camp, I'm automatically like makes my skin crawl. And this is coming from somebody I went to like a normal summer camp. I went to YMCA camp where all of the counselors, like back in the day when I went though, it was like segregated by sex. Now I guess you could have like a trans woman camp counselor with the girls, which I'm not okay with. I'm not okay with any of that. You know what I mean? But like
Mhm.
nothing weird ever happened at camp, like normal YMCA camp, but these aren't normal camps. These are
No,
camps where your kids can't call out, they can't, all of their mail is being monitored, you know what I mean? Like they have no access to phones, they can't leave. You basically sign your kids rights away um for behavior, and then she was trying to tell her parents in like a secret kind of way that like there was abuse that was happening, but they just weren't understanding, and all of her phone calls are being recorded, and then if the person thought that she was saying something to the effect that like she was being mistreated, then she would get like beaten, raped for that, you know what I mean? So it was like it made it so that like you didn't even want to try to tell your parents or your family that
Well,
something.
there's something going on in the house that you're rebelling against, that like your parents aren't getting it anyway. They can't
Right.
control you. You're not
Oh God
behaving.
forbid. Oh God forbid. They can't control you.
I
So now they're
remember
gonna
my
send you to
dad.
a camp that's gonna
Yeah,
control you. Like,
I remember one time my dad said, "Send you to the army or something." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't listen to you. What the fuck makes you think I'm gonna do well in the army? I'm gonna end up in the brig. Like, there's no way. There's no way that I would like. No, there's no
like I'm
fucking
gonna
way."
end up in the shoe, okay? The fucking room with
Yeah.
that's what they used to do to like that was part of Shirley Temple's story because they were child actors, and I think it was right before child labor laws came out that all these kids were like hired for these movies, and if they fucked up a line, if they had a little tantrum, because remember these are like 4 or 5 year olds, they still throw little tantrums, they would lock them up in the shoe or the boot or whatever, and it was like a room with one bucket, all pitch black, and they'd lock them in there for like hours and shit. Like they tortured those children too, and it's just like, wow. And y'all think Hollywood was never, it was built on this. It was built on
Yeah.
exploitation. It was built on
Mhm,
trauma. It was built on sexual
mhm,
abuse. What
mhm,
do you mean it's a surprise? Like, and that's why
mhm.
when you tell me you wish they would all go down, I wish that too, but I feel like it kind of can't, only because all these people are protecting each other,
Yeah.
and they're willing to like throw a random P Diddy under the bus because they will eat their own, but they'll throw them a bone every now and again if they think it'll like protect
Mhm,
themselves, you know? So
mhm. Yeah, for sure. And a lot of I do hope that they open up the Jennifer Lopez stuff. I hope that that's she's having a rough year.
oh,
Her movie
with the
didn't do
Ben
well.
with the
It's
Ben
like, oh, a
breakup
little
and
bit
all
of
that.
karma coming back, huh?
Well, I've heard she's nasty. You know, there are celebrities, you hear the stories, they're very generous, kind to service people. Like apparently Ben was like that. He was very generous, would leave like really like over the top tips. And apparently she would never let him. She would like take the money out. She was the one who would like sign the credit card thing so he couldn't like over tip
Oh, really?
the wait staff. Yeah. There's like a lot of like really like bad stories about J Lo, even
Well,
in
somebody
Vegas.
that could lie to testify to save and then go off to have a career and act like and just be okay with that. I just think that's a horrible human being. I can't imagine. I mean, I just if I'd ever seen anything like that, I just because
Yeah.
and here's another thing. I think I haven't. I think it's on this station. I have an interview that I did with a sheriff. I think she was a sheriff at one time. And we talk about decriminalization of sex work because then you can actually go after the bad guys and the traffickers. So if this is a job that you like and this is what you want to do, you should be protected and it's safe. And I have zero issue with that. Um, it's it's most of the women like from the street. They get caught up in the cycle. There's no going after the men really. I mean, maybe they get them in a sting here or there, but mainly it's and then you get a woman in jail. She's just trying to feed her family, and then now you're caught in the system, and there's no way out because it's a for-profit prison system. So if we decriminalize sex work, then I would even say drugs, but then it becomes personal responsibility. But then you can get health insurance. You can actually report a crime because it's decriminalized. And I think that that's a conversation that needs to be
Or
had more.
even if you don't stay in jail, you're trying to feed your family, it's first offense, second offense, whatever, but now you have a record. So if you try to get a normal
Mhm,
job, they're going to see, what is it, like prostitution or I don't know,
mhm,
solicitation. They're going to see
mhm,
some sort of
mhm.
I don't know if it's a misdemeanor or felony. I mean, because then what? Then you have to like wait a certain amount of years, and then you can get your, you can try to uh get your what is it? Your
Record
expunged, your
expunged.
record expunged.
Mm-hmm.
But even then, that's thousands of dollars. I know because I've looked into doing it myself, and it's like $3,500. You know, like that's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
money. Like it's just
Mm-hmm.
nothing is accessible or attainable, especially if you're trapped in that cycle of survival and ultimately like desperation because you don't have any other resources to tap into. And then now you get caught and now you have a record and now you really have to keep doing this because you can't get a normal job. You can't get a mid-level job where,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're working for a corporation, you have insurance or whatever. Like now you can't do that because they're going to pick somebody else over you, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So it's like the
And
whole thing
why
is a
is
web.
it?
I've always said it's a sticky
It
spider
is.
web.
It's
And once you
awful.
get caught, like you're just like, you
You're in
can't,
it.
you're in it.
And one thing that it's just it makes my blood boils when I think about the women that are taking on all this energy from men that just can't fucking control their fucking dicks. They just can't. They're predators. They're predatorial. And what? They're not happy at home. So rather than getting a divorce and standing up and being a fucking man and or woman, or both of them, they they just go put it somewhere else. Where do you think this energy? Do you think that? I mean, it's energetics, and I'm a little disgusted with men in that a lot disgusted. I'm a lot disgusted that I suppose that's why I have such a deep want for healing trauma. I want men to heal as much as women. I just have a different, I'm a woman, so I have a different take. I have the woman's take on it. But I do see where I know that the biology of a male, I get that it's your biology to spread your seed. And here we are as humans procreating. I get that. But if you don't connect to the sacredness of your sexuality and why you're here, that's why I suppose I'm so passionate about healing trauma. I want men and women to heal. I want a divine union with men and women. And think of how many kids are. I know I was an accident at a fraternity party and my parents got married because I was coming along. So I've gone back and done the past life energy work. I have been in my mother's womb and have been aware of the energy that was coming in. I've done that level of healing work with it, but there are a lot of, I mean, it's a good portion of people don't have that divine union. That's not how they were made. So
But
we
a
all have.
part of it also is about keeping it under control. Like you could have this hypersexual urge or whatever, but like if you don't have that under control, then it's running the show. It's controlling you, right? Like
Absolutely.
your little second brain or whatever. Even with the
Which is
porn
why when I
industry.
talk about the epigenetic
Sorry.
trauma and the horror and the whole archetype of the sacred prostitute, it used to be that the sacredness of that men came home from war and went to the temples and they were healed through this sacred act. And I'm probably going off on a little bit of a weird tangent here, but this is something I'm so deeply passionate about because I've seen. I've mentioned before that a lot of the women that I knew are dead, and not because of necessarily murder. Oh, I will tell one story because this motherfucker's dead. I will. Tom Sizemore.
No,
Do you remember Tom Sizemore
I do
from
not.
Down? And
From
he
what?
was with Heidi Fleiss for a while.
From what? I'm sorry.
Black Hawk Down.
I can't really remember.
And he was with
I have
Heidi
to.
Fleiss for a while. Tom
Okay.
Sizemore. He's dead now, so I can
Okay.
share this tidbit. This is how degenerate these fuckers are. There was a set of twins, and he started fucking with them, and he was buying their boobs, and but he started getting them to fuck each other. And then one of them hung herself in her house, and her sister came home and found it. So fuck him in his rehab. Fuck him. Fuck him. Fuck him. He's dead now, so I can say this story without any. it's not
It's
gratuitous in that.
disgusting. The fact that you're such a degenerate and then you get these other people these twins
And they
to
take advantage of,
demoralize,
they're
degrade.
already they're already susceptible to this coming from whatever their home abuse is, whatever's going on. But like I've said, I've never met a woman, even at the fucking Playboy Mansion. That was all Hugh Hefner. All those guys were those were all honey traps. They're all wired down in the grotto. They're all got cameras, which is why I've been invited. I would never go to those. This is bringing up a lot. So it's just a lot. And I remember when I found out about that girl and her sister was never, they'll never be the same. He destroyed those people because he couldn't fucking control his fucking urges and his addictions and his just perversion and degeneracy. And this is, that's what drugs and ritual. Know your drug dealer, know your drugs. Know, because it can take you places that you're just something else.
And a lot of people don't understand, even these high powered men. I think a lot of them don't start off this way, right? But what a lot of people, a lot of kids who have viewed porn, a lot of 14-year-old boys don't understand is that the more degenerate you get, like the more you the more you involve yourself in this type of sexually explicit, degenerate fucking concepts, the more you need, the more you need to get off. It is literally an addiction, like any other addiction, whether it's food, drugs, whatever. The more that you participate in it, the more you need to get off, to the point where you have victims now. You know what I mean? So this is the point of it. It's
Yes.
like you start out and you don't think that you might even be the victim, right? But the more you participate, it gets to the point, like that's what a paraphilia is. A lot of people don't get this. There's a fetish, which is like, oh, I like a little bondage or for whatever, I like to be tied up a little bit. There's fetish, and then there's a paraphilia, a sexual paraphilia. And it doesn't matter if it's like necrophilia, pedophilia, autogynephilia. These are sexual paraphilias, which means there's usually a victim on the other end. It usually gets to the point of degeneracy where you are willing to victimize another individual to be a part of your psychosexual disorder, basically. So that's the main difference between fetish. Fetish is something that is like you both are participants, willing, whatever. It's usually not that deep. Like maybe it's more reserved. You have it on lock, like you have a control over it, right? But that is a slippery slope. A lot of people don't get that. Even fetishism is a slippery slope, man, because once you start down that hill, that path, you can't go back after certain points. You are a predator, you are predatory, and you are victimizing people. And it gets to that point. And then once you're in so deep like that, you have no empathy or compassion anymore.
Nothing.
You just are going to do more and more and more to get what you need. And everybody else be damned. Children be damned. Women be damned. You don't care anymore how you're affecting these people and how you're literally fucking abusing them and making victims out of people and how you're going to ruin their life, especially for children, for the rest of their fucking life. They will carry these wounds. They'll be more inclined to do crime. They'll be more inclined to do drugs. You know what I mean? Like you can't take back after a certain point what you do to these people. And so, I mean, it is that, but if there was no need for this, but it's who's buying it? Who's the people that?
That's right. And one, I will say a couple things, but on my True North podcast, I haven't been doing it, but it's probably a year, maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years. I did an interview with a dominatrix, and she's now out of it, and she's like, no, all of it is like intimacy is not about hurting. She's like, even if it's a fetish, you're playing with dungeon behavior, and it is not healthy. And this is somebody who was she was in this and she said that one of the big things that drives men, or one thing that is shaming your kids when you're potty training, that a big majority of her clients and where it stemmed from and the things that they shaming while potty training. I'll have to go back and watch the interview maybe and remember exactly how that subject came up. But and this is somebody that did this for a very long time. And that she's like, now that she's recovered, she's like, no, all of it is dungeon behavior. That's why they call it the dungeon, and it's lower chakra. And it is absolutely, I mean, look at throughout history, right? I mean, it keeps repeating itself. So for me, this is an epigenetic trauma, and why these people get involved in it is because it's the subconscious coming up. And when you don't honor that, the being, and this is we're not taught these things. I mean, in religion, it's shame and guilt. In this, it's shame and guilt. Even if you're not in religion, it's shame and guilt. It's all centered around the hijacking of the sacral chakra. And when I was in Egypt, I did not want to go in the pyramids. I had this overwhelming download, whatever you want to call it, that is where the original hijacking of the sacral chakra happened, that there was some sort of a ritual that happened in there, and it happened in bondage and a dungeon like energy, and that's in us, that's a archetypical story that's within us. So when I see men that haven't done the inner work and they want all these, it's like a harem. For me, that's it, because like with alcoholism or any addiction, you have a predisposition to things, and then there can be something that traumatic that happens, and then now you're off to the races with it.
Especially like that mother wound, or to me, in a
Mhm.
weird way, these men who need all these women, or who are like the fuck boy type, or who have girls on the roster. I don't know if you know this, but in certain dating sites, they actually, it's very toxic on the dating sites end. Whereas there are certain men who are outperformers, who are like the alpha outperformers, and they will get all of the women pretty much, including the threes, fours, fives, all the way up to the tens. And the men who are not performing well, they actually get like downvoted in the algorithm, and they won't get like any girls, like they won't even be shown to other women. Like their profile is kind of like hidden basically. And so it's these men, they're encouraged to kind of have this like top dog mentality. And the thing is men actually aren't picky. They're not women. They don't have to gatekeep
Mm-mm.
sex for the same way as women do, because the consequences of sex for men are not the same as women. When the
Mhm.
consequences of sex are pregnancy, which up until 100 years ago basically meant it could lead to death for you or the baby or both of you, right? Like that was
Mhm.
like the consequence of sex.
Mhm.
So when females have evolved epigenetically for thousands and thousands, 10, 20,000 years, with this evolutionary concept, knowing that like on the other end of sex can lead to death, pregnancy, all this stuff, right? Like you gatekeep sex in a different way from men. So you think men are picky, they're only going to go for the 7, 8, 9, 10. No, they don't give a shit. They'll fuck the twos, the threes, the
Yep.
fives, the eights, the tens. And then they have a harem of women. And part of me thinks these men like need that validation. Like it makes them feel powerful
Mhm.
and validated. And really, like,
Mhm.
I look at men like that and I'm like, I personally think that makes you look fucking weak, that you need
Yeah.
all of this validation, that you can't just accept it from one woman. Like, you're the fucking broken one. And then the
Mhm.
fact that they lie to these girls too, they make them feel like, but really they have a whole roster. They got a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They might
Mhm.
see Monday again on Friday. You know what I mean? But they
Mhm.
have like
And
a
they don't. I
mixture.
remember. I mean, you can like, yeah, men will fuck anything.
They don't gatekeep the same.
Uh-uh.
Women literally have to gatekeep sex. That's why it's the woman who chooses. That's why when you go out to a bar, there's that saying, the man might be on the lookout, but if no lady is, reeling him in, then the men are the fish. You know what I mean? It takes a woman to
Mhm.
say, okay, otherwise it's rape,
Mhm.
right? That's why it takes the
Mhm.
woman to be the person that gatekeeps and says, okay, yeah, I'll go home with you tonight. It's the woman's choice. It's female choice. We are the gatekeepers of, we decide who we're going to sleep with, not the other way around. That's why all the dudes are all thirsty looking. And I'm like celibate, so I love just like, not I don't even I'm not a tease though. I'm not gonna make a dude thinks he has a chance. I'm kind of low key, like, no, you ain't got no chance right off the bat. Sorry, like keep it moving, buddy. You know what I mean? And how
Hold
guys
on, real quick.
handle.
Sarah, we have someone in the chat again that says, "Good evening. A friend of mine would like to join and speak to you, ladies, if that's okay." On Sathias. Yeah, we
Yeah,
don't
we
really
don't.
do calls, and I don't know what you'd want to be a guest on. I mean, you can give me a subject. You got to tell me a little bit more than that before I'm just going to bring somebody else on.
Yeah,
Um,
we're gatekeeping our stream here. Sorry if you don't like that.
but yeah, I mean, just yeah, go to a. Well, I haven't been to a bar in a very long time, but
It doesn't even
even
have to be a bar. It could be at the
not even
grocery
a bar.
store.
Yeah,
It could be
yeah,
at the place where the Sierra Club or something. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Whatever traditionally you met guys at work, even, like you could be like thinking a guy at work is cute and he might think you're cute, but until you say okay, it's not going to happen. And if it does, it's not consensual, and it's basically usually categorically rape. Like, women are the gatekeepers of sex. We're the ones who decide our partners, because for us the consequences are procreation, where men don't have to think about that. It's not
Mhm,
even a little fucking thought in their head. They never have
mhm,
to. They didn't have to evolve with that as a consequence. So they're able to spread their seed as far and wide as possible and never have to think about the bodily repercussions, the mortality repercussions, the monetary repercussions of raising a baby with no dude. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Sorry, I'm reading chat. He said, "Well, he used to have a channel with 25,000 about red pill, and he has a special worldview. He is not red pill or any pill now. He advocates nightlife type of lifestyle and working out." I mean,
nightlife.
that's great. Uh, 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 Maybe another show. I mean, if you want to contact me at overgroundrailroad@gmail.com and give me a little more information, maybe we'll do another show and we can talk about this, because we do talk about the red pill, and this is something you're not, I'm not interested. I just wasn't expecting this tonight, and I'd like to have, we're going to have a guest on that. It's a little bit more planned, and I appreciate you, um, asking, and thank you. I don't know how to pronounce your name. Onsathai. I'm going to try. But thank you for that. And maybe at another time, when there's a little preparation, but I do appreciate that. Um, but
I love the idea of men waking up from that red pill manosphere
yeah,
thing, because it's dangerous. It's
absolutely.
harmful to women. It treats
Yes.
women like property, like breeding property, like that's all we're good for. And after that, like, and it doesn't, they don't discriminate either. You could be a mom who's divorced, or the dad died and now you're 38 with no husband and a kid, and these red pill dudes will just be like, you fucking have no eggs, you just leech to,
Low value.
low value female. And it's like, she did everything right. How do you know her story? Or how do you know that this lady who's my age didn't have cervical cancer or something, can't have kids even if she wanted to? Like, who are you? Like, the way that the standard that they judge on is so
No,
flimsy and so just like morally bankrupt, because they pretend like
no.
there's not a such thing as an individual, or as an
Mhm,
individual story as to why, or just
mhm.
like maybe even like me and you were married, but like, yes, I am 40, and somebody called me hag maxing the other day, and I was like, but at least I'm maxing. Like, what are you talking about? To me, age is a blessing. I was taught my whole life that age is not guaranteed, and age is a blessing. Every year that you are on this earth is literally a blessing, because a
Yeah.
lot of people don't make it to
Stop
40,
it.
a lot of people don't make it to 50. I'm just happy to still be here, and I don't care if
Yeah.
I'm 40 and I'm unmarried and I don't have kids. I'm sorry, I had a really horrible childhood. I did. It was not good. I was physically abused by my dad and my brother. I have a very hard time forming relationships with men because of this. And is that my fault? Is it really my fault that like I'm genuinely traumatized and scarred from it? Like, and
Mhm.
I'm just doing me. I'm not harming anybody. I'm
Mhm.
not. I don't promote a super promiscuous. I'm not at some hardcore feminazi type. You know what I mean? Like, I love kids. I advocate for family. I advocate for
Mhm.
morality. I advocate for relationships and monogamy. You know what I mean? I'm not some polyamorous blue-haired psycho with a septum ring. Like, why are you coming for me? I'm just literally a
Mhm.
girl and an individual who didn't have the best life, and I'm just still happy to be here. I'm just
Yep.
happy to be surviving in my little world, taking care of my mom. My mom is my dependent now. I take care of her. She had cancer. She doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy to be here, man. If you're gonna judge me because I have no eggs or whatever, then like fuck you. I don't care.
Right.
Like I don't
Right.
care. Like
And,
I,
I didn't even really think being divorced and stuff like when I hear some of these things, I'm like, fuck off. I have a really fucking incredible life. And if you think for 1 minute that I think that women, because we're a certain age or we don't like how to put people in such um,
a small
uh,
box, like a
yeah, yeah.
you can only fit in here because you didn't do these things. And it's like it's also weird because they eat their own. Like I am technically somebody who's more right leaning, and it doesn't matter to red pill manosphere community. Like they'll attack even like the more like right leaning women, you know what I mean? They eat
Mhm,
their own in that sense. And it's like
mhm,
it's just weird. The whole thing is weird. Like, and it's like this female hatred, and then it just like re-solidifies the fact that they think
mhm.
women are only good for having babies. And it's like,
And then meanwhile, they're jacking off to porn 24/7 and they're going to try
yeah,
to,
or
it's
paying
like,
for OnlyFans,
mhm,
or you know what I mean? Like,
weak. So we had somebody else join us here, Sam Allen. I don't know if he's still here. He said, y'all man haters or what?
no, I'm
That's
not a
the
man hater.
simplicity.
I
Not
love men
hearing what we're
actually.
saying.
No,
Not
you're not
hearing what we're
hearing.
saying.
No, I'm saying I
That's
hate the
the
man.
fucking point right there. That's the fucking
I
point
hate the
right
red
there.
pill manosphere community. I love men, and I think men are absolutely vital for society. You'll never see me one of these people if there's a man on the street and they say, "Do you think society needs men?" I'm going to say absolutely. My brother is a freaking plumber. My other brother is a mechanic. My dad is a freaking electrician. I understand why men are very vital, very necessary, and how
Mhm,
they carry the torch forward, especially when it comes to building society. I get that. I think men, especially sacred masculinity, I think I
yes.
love men. I don't think all men or whatever, you know what I mean? But it's like, why do you have to turn the tables? Why can't I make a certain point or argument about a certain community without being a man hater? You know, like, are you a woman hater? Are you a woman hater if you hate the feminist movement? Like, I hate the feminist movement and I'm a girl's girl. You know what I mean? Like, I think the
Mhm.
feminist movement has done a lot of harm to women,
Harm.
women's
Mhm,
rights, just
mhm.
relationships. The free sex, free love movement has basically made it so men don't have to commit. I have a lot of bones to pick with feminism, but that doesn't mean that I'm a woman hater. You know what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah.
stupid.
But
Like,
that's
it's
the
dumb.
simplicity of a comment like that. And, if you're trolling and trying to get a rise, and, okay, fine. It's not my first rodeo on the internet, but um, I, that kind of comment just is like, well, thank you for proving my point. Because you didn't hear anything, and I don't know how long you've tuned in, and if it's just a little fucking troll comment, but that's the kind of person you are, Sam Allen. You just, go
Here's
home,
here's a
go
perfect
somewhere.
opportunity. Here's a perfect opportunity, Sam, for you to listen to women's qualms and hear what we're saying about how a lot of this like sexual degeneracy is being driven by men not wanting to heal, not wanting to listen to women, not wanting to change their perspective. A lot of this is being fueled by men because they are the purveyors of it. They're the ones that are paying for the sex. They're the ones that are paying for the OnlyFans. They're the ones that are paying for the prostitutes. They're the ones that are paying for the porn. I'm not to say that women don't watch porn too, but the vast majority is men, and it's proven statistically that it's mainly men and boys who participate. And the fact that it's starting at boyhood because it's just so accessible should
Mhm.
really make men take a step back and be like, wow, like this is wrong, and like what do we do to start shaping, since you are such shapers of society and you're so
Yeah.
good at it, why don't you start shaping it for the better of not only mankind but for womankind, your daughters, your wives, your mothers, your sister that maybe didn't get married and now she's being told she's worthless and she has no place in society and she's just a useless eater. Like, cool, that's weird totalitarian and authoritarian like points that y'all spout sometimes with that shit. So it's
Mhm.
like, I'm sorry if I'm of no use to you as a female, but like I definitely take care of my mother. I take care of my own. I pay all the bills. You know what I mean? So I take care of my own. I'm doing my job. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and it's just, well, I mean, I see the rise of OnlyFans and these sort of things, and I understand. I understand to a point because that's where we are, and this didn't start yesterday. But this epidemic of the Madonna whore complex is very real. And I actually have more than a couple friends that are dealing with this in their marriage, that they and that somehow under the umbrella of marriage, that you are just, that's your job, is to sexually satisfy, and then when you stop that, whether it's hormone changes or whatever's going on, she doesn't want to touch me and now she's useless. Like, isn't that your job to, I know I felt like that in my marriage. I absolutely felt like that like there was an obligation to somehow fulfill me. I didn't want to. It didn't make me a failure as a wife. It meant I just didn't want to. And not all the time, but then at the end, it was like, yeah, I'm just done with this. But it started as this obligatory sort of, no real effort on my partner's part. And that's when I was like, yeah, this just wasn't the right marriage. And didn't mean to really get into my ex-husband. He's not here to
No,
defend.
but I mean, it's a good example, especially the part where it's like, if they're not interested in satisfying you or doing the work to even put you in the mood, you know what I mean? If it's just like expected, like a fucking
Mhm.
job, it's like, then I'll treat it like a job. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'll treat it as routine, run of the mill, won't be fun for
yeah,
either of us at some point. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's like,
That's
if
exactly.
there's
And
like,
then the idea that somehow, like, I'm supposed to, like, you've watched porn, that's not reality. And now
now,
that's
now
that.
you have to perform though. Now it's a
Mhm,
performance. Now you have to perform what these other women are doing because now he set the standard for himself to get off. So, because that's what
mhm,
happens. That was that addictive
mhm.
part, right? Like the more you participate, the more you need, the more
Yeah,
you're
and
gonna
I've never met
gross or the
anybody in
shit you
porn that
need.
that liked what they were. It's a performance, men. It's a performance. It's
Yeah, it's
not
an act.
real. And
It's an
the
act.
women aren't really, really, really liking it, or they're on a lot of drugs. And we've seen from the whole Diddy stuff that
And
this whole, the
also, women
drugs
are,
part.
so yeah, the Madonna whore thing, right? So I'm a girl who's never had an OnlyFans, right? Like I've never been on one of these sites. I'm not some like, but if I did out of desperation, that means again, like, oh, she's just a whore, she's just this. But like,
Mhm.
so I either get called some sort of like a prude. I'm either a prude or I'm a slut or I'm just like whatever, I'm
Mhm.
useless, no eggs, whatever. It's like you can never
Mhm.
win. That's the problem. You can never win unless you got married. Right when you, well, great. When I was 22, I was in survival. I moved out of my house when I was 18 out of an abusive situation. I
Yeah.
was just on the run. I didn't have time to keep out a
Yep.
relationship. I could barely pay my bills. I didn't have a car.
Yep.
Like it took me a
Mhm.
long time to like one and
Fuck
even start to
yeah.
heal my own shit. If I had a relationship with kids at 22, I probably would have been a horrible mother. And I'm just
I
gonna put
know
that
I
out
would have
there.
been.
I would have
I
been a
often
horrible
said, but
mother.
when I finally was getting like 38, when I met my ex-husband, and there was a discussion, like I was starting to, I would have, but then by then I was like, I don't want to be 40 fucking years old having kids. I'd rather hang, by then I had Paladin, I was starting my horse stuff, and that's where my passion was. I didn't want to be a 60-year-old with a child graduating from high school. It didn't appeal to me. So that didn't happen for me. But like with you, Sarah, I was discarded by my family. I had, and the abuse was so extensive in my home, and there's no acknowledgement of that. I was just an embarrassment. They had all the money, and they could just, and it's like with this Diddy stuff, they had the money, so these people are trash, they can just discard them. Well, that's how a lot of us got into this whole thing, is we were discarded by our families from abuse inside of our homes, and then we're out in the world with no real skills to even, I
Yes,
flunked out of
so
college because
it's like what are
it
these
was
people
so bad.
advocating? You want these 22-year-old girls who possibly had horrible lives or suffered a lot of abuse, you want them to immediately jump in and have kids and then be horrible mothers, and then they'll be judged for being a bad mom because they had no time to heal
Mhm.
themselves. They had no time to figure it out. They had no time to figure out where this pain, where this trauma, where this guilt, where their triggers, where their anger comes from. You
Mhm.
immediately have kids, and then guess what? You just fucking the chain just keeps on going. Like that would have been
Yep.
better for me than like actually figuring it out and like the process, the agonizing, uh, just coming into
And
my
I
own.
imagine that a lot of these fucking men aren't good husbands and fathers. So instead of looking at their own shit, they project it outward onto the women instead of going and dealing with their own mommy and daddy
they're,
issues.
they're either not good husbands or fathers, or they are incels and they can't get women anyway, so they're just resentful,
And
and this is the
closet
way that they're
gays,
playing out their resentments. Yes, closet gays, maybe
a good
guilty,
majority of them,
or the
a lot of
incel
them.
thing. A lot of these guys are incel like, and it's literally, it is a type of, that's their own trauma, but it is a way for them to take out their aggression and their resentment, because like I said, women choose the partner. We are the gatekeepers. It's them being resentful that women aren't choosing you. They're not picking you. And now you're fucking mad, you're resentful. Now you hate women. Now you're going to bash women. You know what I mean? And it's like, maybe you should start asking why women aren't picking you. Women have great intuition for the most part. Not always, of course. We fall into abusive situations sometimes, but for the most part, there's something that women can see in you. If like you have this weird degenerative, or the way that you
Brother,
even treat women,
ooh.
the way you treat women like an object, like a sexual, you're not talking to her like a person. You know what I mean? Like you can't get down on that level, and like that's going to be an immediate turnoff. So maybe you should start asking why women aren't picking you, instead of being aggressive and then turning around and treating women like shit with resentment. Maybe you should start looking in on yourself, which is what I did from the time I was 18, out on my own. I didn't jump into a relationship. I went in. I was like, girl, you are fucked up. You are traumatized. Like you need to figure this out. And I'm 40 now, and I've just barely really figured
I
it
was
out.
I was
And
28 when my mom died, and that's when I started. I really, I was like, why does it hurt to be in my body? I went to acting school, and that's really the best therapy. I started. I did stand up. I started expressing my voice. I started trying to expose sex trafficking. I tried to expose the things I was seeing, and because I was like, how like why does it physically hurt to be in my body? Why can't I hold a job? Why am I having these? And now I know it's CPTSD and ADHD. I had severe ADHD in my home and grow. That's why I didn't flunk out of college, because I'm stupid. I'm not a stupid woman. I'm not at all. Um, I love learning. I just didn't like school. So I had to find my own way. And by the time I finally actually had some sense, and I could support myself, the shit passed for having kids. And I wouldn't have been a good mother, like you were saying.
and what is that to say then? You're just worthless. You have no worth in society. You have no use if you're not of use to a man.
Well,
Like
according to the
it's just,
red pill douchebags,
yeah, but I'm
what an
sorry.
embarrassing group of men.
Unfortunately for them, like we're not in the 1800s. We're not in the Victorian era anymore, dudes. Like, sorry, like we do have our own autonomy. I am an individual. I do have my own path. I do have my own North Star that I'm following, and I don't need to fulfill any of these little things that you need to fulfill in order to, one, be of use to society, two, be fulfilled in my life. You know what I mean? Like it's just such a weird mentality that they
It
try
is.
to put a cage on you. And again, it's like trying to cage the feminine. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's just like I don't suffer any fools when they try to come for me with that. I think it's actually hilarious. Like, because I'm very honest about my age. It's on my Instagram, my Facebook. Like, they'll be like, "Oh, you're a 40-year-old." You think I know for a fact I don't look it. If I wanted to hide that, I could very easily. I could. I would never have to even mention my age. These dudes would never know. But I am not ashamed. I am not ashamed of my age. I am proud. I am proud that I've come
Yep.
this far, that I've made it this far, that I'm still trekking, that I still have life in me, that I still have love in me. And more to the point where you said you started acting school and improv, that was a big awakening for me when I started making music, and I was in a band, and I was
Mhm.
writing songs and like
The
expressing myself,
creativity.
and the creativity, the way that I had an outlet, you know what I mean? And
Mhm.
that was
I
really
finally
big for
I
me.
gave myself permission to explore my extremes. And I named her, my state brighten and darken. I named my extremes, and I could fly through them. It was so much of a release. And then I really started to go deep into like the DSM, psychology. I went to 2-year Meisner Conservatory. It was 2 years of deep studies, deep study of myself, to know thyself. What a gift it is to know thyself. And
What
you
a
know,
gift. I've
I've
had all this time to know myself and heal,
yeah,
without passing that trauma on to another little person.
yeah,
Like, God.
yeah. And now the work I do with helping humans move through that is so rewarding. And I'm 55 and I love, well, there's a few things that are, it's aging, but I don't have like something where I feel like I have failed as a woman because I don't have kids and I'm 55. No, I have a very satisfying career. I'm very proud of myself for the work I've done, considering the trauma that I've come through. And now I extend my hand and help those that I can. I'm very proud of that
And
work.
just for y'all, if you don't know, Kim also has a very peaceful, and honestly, like, that's where we all kind of want to be someday, like out in nature, very close, living in nature, um doing therapy work, doing healing work, being able to take the time to do her habitual, her, what do you call it, like your, almost, you do daily practices basically,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
are very like keen about doing them because it's helped you move through your ADHD, through your CPTSD. I never even heard of CPTSD until a few years ago, and I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely have that, and I'm pretty sure I do have ADHD, and all these things went undiagnosed, unchecked.
Mhm.
I just always felt like there was something wrong with me, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I thought all of that was rooted in my trauma. The CPTSD is from trauma, but the ADHD, I'm pretty sure that's something I've always had. And they just,
Mhm.
back then, they didn't have diagnosis for stuff like
Mm-mm.
that. So it was
I
like,
got late diagnosis. I was in my 30s and I just ignored it because at the time, see, CPTSD isn't in the DMS. And so, but they
I
do
don't
go
think it
hand
is
in,
yet.
nah, not, nuh but they go hand in hand. And so exploring that, you know, it just, again, it's why I'm so passionate about helping people move through trauma. And because my horses have done that, like my own journey through it. And it's debilitating. I mean, I couldn't I couldn't work after certain periods of time. So I'd get a corporate job and I would lose it, or I just would be so overwhelmed. Well, now I know that I was having flashbacks and that I have ADHD. And so for me, I could go strip a couple times a month and pay the bills. So I never went on the dole. I always had a job. Whether you like the fucking job I had or not made no fucking difference to me because you weren't paying my fucking bills. I was surviving. And so many people are out in survival, whether they're doing it in one industry, people are in survival mode, and we live on a traumatized planet. And so many people,
Especially right now. Think about COVID. That was all survival mode. Like,
absolutely. And so many people, I've never had trauma. And this is the thing, we gaslight ourselves too. Well, my trauma wasn't that bad. It's individual. It doesn't matter what's dealing with your trauma. And a lot of people don't think that they've had trauma until finally, like, COVID really woke a lot of people up, and it's given people, it's exposed their trauma, and it's become um, well,
like,
I was watching a video today on the kids, a teacher, and she's talking about how the kids they're all sick, their mental health, like she doesn't,
mm,
she's watching the kids just deteriorate. What is it, 72 shots by the time they're
I think,
like
like, yeah,
6
in
years
school,
old.
elementary school or some shit.
And then people that rush to give their kids these COVID vaccines that weren't even, my sister did it. And I, I don't mean to, I don't, it's not fair of me to bring family in here. They're not here, but I just getting children vaccinated that many times, and especially the COVID it's just sickening.
Yeah, untested, like that's the whole thing, is just that the amount of pressure that they put, like, and maybe if it wasn't even that much of a pressure under like a pressure cooker, a powder keg or whatever, like I might have even contemplated doing it at some point. But the way that they were so coercive by force, fraud, or coercion. And what is
Mhm,
coercion? Coercion is, do this and I'll do that for you. You'll get free
mhm,
donuts for a year, free burger and
mhm.
fries, free this, free that, free
Not
weed,
even for
free
a year,
alcohol.
you just get one.
No, for the donut for Krispy Kreme, it was one donut every day for a year. But like, you're
Oh,
concerned about
it
my
was?
health, but you'll get a free donut every day. But this is about health, right? So like, it was to the point where it was literally like it was canceling out the whole premise of like the being healthy, a healthy population, but then we're gonna give everybody free fucking donuts for a healthy population. Oh, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
right.
Like
But it's also,
the Stephen
there was no
Colbert
study.
dancing needle thing, like all of it was so
The
coercive. And
dancing nurses.
I'm like, why do you have to like talk me into something so much if this is genuinely something that people should be volunteering for? Like, not the levels that they went to is like immediately what made me go no. Immediately no, they're trying too hard, they're trying too
Mhm.
fucking hard to get every single person to take this shit, especially knowing what I know. I'm not a doctor, but uh, I'm a licensed massage therapist. I did have to go through some health training about the human body. I understand how the flu is different from the measles, and how certain viruses, and they have an animal vector. And if they have an animal vector, that means it can go from human to animal back to human while mutating. And you can't really kill that with a vaccine. You cannot. Every disease, from smallpox to measles to chicken pox, every vaccine that actually has cured people, polio, it is because it was only transferable from human to human. That's it. That's why we were
Yeah.
able to literally get, like, eradicate these diseases. They were human to human transference. But when it is human to human transference, you cannot eradicate that disease by vaccination. You can't, unless you vaccinate every single wild animal on the planet, which is
Mhm.
ridiculous, right? So I
Mhm.
automatically, I already knew when I started listening about what type of virus it is. Like, maybe you think that you need to have some sort of title or a little piece of paper that certifies you to have opinions. I've said this before. I no authority above my own. I don't outsource my authority to public officials, to people in white lab coats, to authority figures. I don't do that. I do not. Now, I can make an agreement, like I break my arm, clearly the doctor has, I will give them the authority to reset it, but that is because it was under my permission that I gave that. I'm not going to just blindly do that, especially when I have a brain to think these things out and you present certain questions that they can't answer. So it's just
Mhm.
no, it was all coercive. The way I had a group
All
of
of it.
friends who said if you didn't have your vaccine, you couldn't come to their little house party. And I said, I don't want to fucking go to that anyways. That sounds nerdy as hell. What the hell kind of authoritarian police energy? You're trying to
Right?
police your part. No, thank you. No thanks. I'll hang
Exactly.
out with the lowly people. I'll hang out with my lowly scumbag friends in low places, okay? Like shit.
Yeah. Well, the governor of New York, even in an interview, said, "We didn't force you to do it. You didn't have to do it." After everything that they did, and then that's the gaslighting, and that's the thing. Like, the
You'll
amount of
only lose your job.
gaslighting.
You'll only lose
What's
your
that?
job if you don't do it. You'll only lose your job and your livelihood.
Yeah. Well, the Cuomo brothers, or whatever, and
That
uh,
was a mass trauma, though. If y'all don't know, that was like an MK Ultra. That was a
absolutely.
mass trauma on society, and so was 9/11. And a lot of these
Yeah.
school shootings are mass trauma inducing
Hmm.
events that cause you to have trauma and then make you susceptible to being controlled. Basically,
Yep.
that's how it
Fear, fear,
works.
fear. Problem, reaction, solution. The Hegelian dialectic.
Exactly. Didn't we want to get into the Russell Brand thing? We're on this like
Oh,
male kind of thing. We should go over that before we
yeah.
change.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Um, So, not just last show, but in one of our very first shows, I was talking about people that were suddenly joining the Catholic Church. Hmm. And I had the intuitive hit. What came to me is for protection. Well, why would that be? Well, it would seem, and I've never liked Russell Brand after he stole the revolution with the love inside the revolution that was Ron Paul's, and that fucker went out and trademarked it. So I've never liked him. And then he did this flip to talking about his being Catholic, and now he's dipping people, and he's baptizing people, and he's on the stage with Tucker, and he's, and Candace Owens. And yes, these are gatekeepers, but I have a special um re- I just don't like Russell Brand. And now it's coming out, all of his Diddy connections and all of his little well, first off, he comes from he's an elite himself, and from his family, as I understand.
I
And
thought he wasn't. I thought he grew up with a single mom, like white. If I remember correctly, I could be wrong though, but I thought that was part of his story, is how he
okay,
grew up like not entitled or whatever.
but he now under the wing of the Catholic Church, and I said it was for protection. I still believe that. I still absolutely believe it. But all the pictures coming out at Diddy's parties, and who he is, and it's like, oh, and hey, it doesn't mean you can't have a comeback story. I just do not believe for 1 minute that his is genuine at all.
Also, let's talk about how he converted to Catholicism after those allegations came out in the media, where I think that he was getting sued or something, and I think he lost like his Twitter or his Facebook. Something happened. They but these allegations came out first, and then he converted to Catholicism, mainly for protection, or so he could absolve his previous sins, because that's one thing that Christianity kind of does in a way. It's absolves you of previous sins, you know what I mean? Because that's the point of accepting Christ and covered in the blood or whatever, is it's supposed to kind of absolve you. But that's in the spiritual realm. That doesn't mean that it absolves you in the physical realm for your misdeeds, right? Like, but he it kind of is working with him. Like, it's given him a new public image. It's given him like a way to use it as a scapegoat. Like, no, I'm Christian now. I'm good and I'm moral and I'm seeking Christ and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, he doesn't want to talk about any of the past deeds, though. He doesn't, oh, I'm absolved of that. Okay, maybe in the spiritual realm, because that's the point of Christianity, is it's talking about like after this world, right? It doesn't absolve you though of like crimes that you did. That's why like killers and people who do crimes will go to jail and then they'll become Christian. And while in the religion, they might be saved or forgiven if they've truly like changed their life or whatever, but like it doesn't mean that they're going to get out of jail. It doesn't mean that you now get to absolve your life in prison sentence, you know what I mean? Because it's not for the physical realm. Christianity is for the spiritual realm, but he's acting like it is a cloak, an invisibility cloak from all past misdeeds and
or even
allegations.
becoming Muslim. It's like hiding behind them being gatekeepers, and you get some protection for what you did on the physical. It's like, no, you should all be held accountable
But
for it.
also, color me surprised, Tate going to a religion that literally like believes women shouldn't show their faces and are property and treated like property of the man. Like, oh, color me surprised that that's the religion he wanted to go to, the one that most disrespects women by law, legally. In a lot of these Islamic nations, women are literally second-class citizens. They don't have rights. They're treated like cattle. They can be publicly stoned without any trial. You know what I mean? If you looked at a man, apparently, even if you didn't, but they say that you did, now you can be stoned just because some guy made an allegation against you. Like,
And the amount of homosexuality that is rampant with so many men. I will tell you this: when I was doing phone sex, do you know what the number one fantasy for men was?
I love it. It's not a thing anymore, phone sex, but back in the day before cell phones, guys, phone sex was a thing.
I made some good money doing phone sex, I'll tell you that. It was easy. It was so fucking easy. But the number one fantasy was they wanted me to take them through a gay fantasy.
You said I can't even change my voice like that. Maybe call a gay phone sex hotline. I feel like
No,
it's
meaning
anonymous.
like have them like as if I was with a man and then bringing another man into like but to have them be together to make it okay to be in the presence of it. That was the number one thing that men wanted.
They needed that validation in order to like be
Mhm.
okay with the fantasy. See, these people,
Mhm.
it's so subconscious. It's
Mhm.
crazy. It's so crazy,
Mhm.
like how, oh man, guys are so gross.
And that's one of the reasons that, I mean, I've just seen the world from such a different place. I'm surprised that I ever even got to a place where I truly could say that I for the right man, I love men, but for a good majority of them, um, I I don't trust them. I don't. I get it. I just get this feeling around me. Very few men I feel comfortable and safe with. For the most part, I'm always on edge around them. Or when I am watching them, I'm seeing everything, and I just have, and I'm an INFJ in the MTBI, so I have inverted intuition anyway. I've already have any, but I've
It's
just
already
seen so much.
heightened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trauma does that too. I've just seen so much that I don't.
Well, actually, what I think a lot of these men who are again going to be like, oh, men haters, what they don't realize is actually an evolved trait in women. And what you don't realize is any woman at any given time is paying way more attention to her surroundings than any man will ever have to do. We're
Mhm,
constantly on the lookout for any
mhm,
signs, whether that be body language, a look, their
mhm,
fist balling up, their jaw tightening. We are
mhm,
literally on the lookout all at all given times. Our senses are trying to pick up on any little minor riffs that would alert us that
mhm,
danger is near, and guys
mhm,
just don't get that because it's not an evolved trait with them like
mhm,
it is for women. Even if we're in a safe Western society, you're still out of the corner of your eye, you see movement and you're going to look, or you know that there's
mhm,
a man behind you and you're running, you might put
mhm.
your front facing camera on and like maybe even call someone or something so that you can see behind you. You know what I mean? Like there are all these things that women are constantly doing. And one thing I have heard like trans women say is like Blair White, for instance, has said she never realized because while she was a man, she never had to pay attention or feel that much in danger. But now that she is perceived as a
Mhm.
woman, she explains how much just like her central nervous system evolved and changed very quickly to like having to pick up on minor things and
Yep,
always feeling that there was like a threat nearby, even if there wasn't. This is an evolved trait for survival for women. So
yep.
men think that like we're doing it on purpose. We're not actually. This is for our survival, which is why
Mhm,
women's protected spaces are so important, which is why women's only locker rooms, spas, all this shit is
mhm.
essential for female survival because men don't have to fear the opposite sex. And it must be really nice to never have to do that, to be afraid of women coming to hurt you or
Mhm,
rape you or do
mhm.
something against your will. But for women, we have evolved to
Yep.
always be
Mhm,
aware of the male presence around us. From the time I was a kid, I was taught that. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's ingrained, and it's not like I'm doing it because I hate men. I don't hate men, but I do have it. I'm a 5'2". I weigh 115 pounds. Like, I'm a tough girl, but any man can basically overpower me if they wanted to. I'll fight like hell.
mhm,
I'll bite, I'll scratch, I'll try to poke your eye
mhm.
out. I'll do all kinds of low down, dirty shit. I don't care. But you can overpower me. So that is constantly in the back of my head. And who
Yeah.
men are like, just, oh, they're just paranoid. No, I wish that it was a paranoia, but I have literally been chased for turning
Mhm,
down an advancement before. I've been threatened to be murdered. Like this legitimately happened to me. You know, it happens
mhm.
to all different kinds of women. It's a universal
Yeah.
experience almost, you know? And so
Mhm,
it's like I'm glad men make fun of it and think that it's just all funny and ho ho, they're just being paranoid and there's no need for that. And you live in Westerns. That's great. I'm glad that you think that, but it's because you've never had to do this. You've never had to feel this way. You
mhm,
didn't evolve with your brain constantly being on
mhm.
survival instinct mode, ready to fight, flight, or freeze or fawn or whatever. You know what I mean? So the closest thing men know to that is PTSD, when you realize like the external threat that shapes and warps your mind and your nervous system from like war or fighting or being abused as a child. Like that's how it is basically to be a woman all the
Mhm.
time though. You know, like your nervous system has been shaped and primed to survive, protect
Yeah.
yourself, look for any little shifts in the environment. Men only experience that when they've experienced trauma, and then they know what we're talking about, you know. But other than that, men who just kind of they didn't have traumatic life, they don't have to worry about that. Their nervous system wasn't wired incorrectly. They do think it's funny, like, oh, you live in Western culture, what do you have to worry about men for? And it's like,
Yeah, exactly. And then the whole attitude of when I hear these red pill guys talk and just, well, first off, they lack self-awareness. So I don't know where the fuck they get off trying to tell women that they're low value. Go look in the fucking mirror. Do you know what you sound like right now? You sound pathetic. And there's one guy, wasn't the Rouge, LaRouche? He was big for a minute.
think
And
you've
then
talked about
he,
him before.
yeah, and he was one of the original red pill guys. And now he had the revelation, whether it's for clicks or whatever. And I haven't followed him for this, I mean, back 8, 9 years ago. But that he even came to the, like, the turning point of realizing, that um, what he was saying was from a place of very low self-esteem and insecurity. And when a man goes inward and does his inner work and recognizes his divine masculine and can see that in a divine feminine, that's a beautiful thing. I would love to see that happen throughout the whole red pill thing, is having the revelation that you wanting to spread your seed and wanting a harem is the low value.
And probably rooted in trauma or some sort of
Mhm.
inept, you know, not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, whatever. So you need all
Yep.
these women to validate you. But like how Kim says, do the work. This is coming from a woman, from Kim, who has been doing the work and who has done the work, and she continues to do the work to heal herself, to understand her urges, her triggers, how to self-soothe, how to work with her CPTSD and ADHD. So when me and Kim are saying we want men to do the work, that's not coming from some empty spot. That's coming from like that we have also been doing the work, and it's hard and it's long going and slow going, and it's not like you do it for one day and you're healed. It's usually
It's
like
not
kind of a
linear.
lifelong, it's like a
Mhm.
lifelong process, you know, to the point where like you're always going to be working at it. You're always
Mhm.
going, because we all are. We're never perfect. You always have something to improve upon, to do better, to try again next time, to not blow up at your spouse or your kid this way or whatever, you know? So it's like if you just have this high and hoity-toity, like I can do no wrong, but I can tell you right off the bat, like you need to do some work because you
Yeah.
you are not perfect. Sorry, I hate to be the one to break that to you, but
Yeah. And it's, I see, um, well, it's just all the divide and conquer. It's just one more thing that,
yeah, women versus men, gay
mhm,
versus straight, black versus
mhm,
white, Dem versus Republican. They're
mhm,
dividing us up as many ways as they can. And if like
everywhere.
the
Mhm,
feminazis and then the manosphere, if they can't see that that is just another way to divide and conquer along the sex classes, because that's what it
mhm,
is. You know,
mhm.
we should all come back towards the middle a little bit, because there is a middle, and there is the far left feminazis and there's the far right manosphere red pill, and it's like we should all be doing work to come back a little bit towards the center, because neither of these ideals or these ideologies, whatever you want to call it, neither of them, there's valid points on both ends for sure, but that doesn't mean that they are correct, you know, like the broken clock is right, you know, two
Yeah.
times a day. So it's like
Mhm.
you, just because you make some valid points doesn't mean that your whole ideology is valid. You know, it's silly.
Yeah.
Come back towards the center a little bit. Stop being so hateful to women, especially women that would normally be on your side or take your stances.
Mhm.
You know, stop calling people worthless. Like, Same with the
Mhm.
feminists. Oh, men are worthless. I will never say that, and you will never hear me say that. So when men are like, oh, women over 35 are worthless, it's like, great, I'm a person. You just dehumanize me and said I have no
Mhm.
value in all of life, even though I'm taking care of my mom. My older brother isn't doing that. My older brother has kids. He's not taking care of my mom at all. Financially,
Mhm.
no way. It's me, the daughter, who's doing it, you know? So it's like,
Mhm.
I have value right there that I'm taking
Yeah.
care of my own, you know, and I didn't just toss her to a freaking nursing home or something. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, we all have value regardless of age, sex, marital status, child status. Like, it's silly. I'm
Mhm.
not one of those people that thinks an 80-year-old has no value. I'm not one of those people. That's weird
Right.
totalitarian mind fuckery.
Right.
The anti-human shit. I'm not with the shits. You know what I mean? I think
Mhm.
everybody has value, including newborn babies and 85-year-old men, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not about
Yeah.
the life of dehumanizing people based on status. That's stupid. It's literally ignorant as fuck. And like, I can't abide.
Mhm.
So,
And the individual, getting back to like the collective, the broad strokes, like go by the individual. You know, you may be surprised how many beautiful individuals there are. It's the group that tends to, not be so fun. So individually, the men, but the group of men that are over here in that world, like as a group, like you might want to check yourself a little bit.
and I'll
And
say
what
the
are
same
you doing
advice for the
there?
group of women, the group of the
Hmm.
feminazis, the hardcore leftists, like the fourth wave feminists or whatever, this
Hmm.
new wave of feminism. Like, check yourself too, because
Yep.
men are absolutely vital and necessary for society.
Hmm.
And anyone who says otherwise is, I'm sorry, you're dumb. Like, you're straight up dumb. Who's gonna
Yeah.
unclog your toilets? Who's gonna fix your car? Who's gonna build the skyscrapers? Who's gonna it's just, there's so much stuff. It's who's going to do the crab fishing, who's going to do all the hard things that
Hmm.
men literally thrive on, you know, they're the hunters, the
Hmm.
bravery that it takes to get up on some skyscraper and build it up. That is insane to me, you know? So it's like, there's use on both sides. And I'm sorry if it offends you that I never had kids, but it wasn't because I didn't like kids or I never wanted to. I definitely was a time when I did want to, it just didn't happen for whatever reason. And I'm okay with that. So you should be okay with that. You know, like, it's weird
Right.
to have such harsh opinions on someone else's entire life and pretend like you know them from one interaction on the internet. Like, get a grip, people
Right. The broad strokes that, yeah.
that paint us all under one
Hmm.
banner. Like,
Hmm.
no, we're
I
the
mean,
individual threads of the tapestry. We are,
and part of the reward of doing the work is that I I'm so wanting to have a divine partner, and I've done enough work that I can look in the mirror. I love myself, even on the rough days. That took a lot of work to get there. That took a lot of work to finally be able to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I love you, and mean it and know it and feel it, mind, body, and spirit. That did not come easy. That's a hard earned statement for me. And I would love to see that for so many that are traumatized, that they can look in the mirror and learn what loving yourself is, because you didn't get it as a child, or you for whatever reason. Um, and to not have shame and guilt around my body for things that were beyond my control as a child. I did not, I mean,
didn't ask for it.
I
Yeah.
didn't ask for it. And, I was 7 years old. So how that shaped me, I didn't ask for that, but I've done the work. Now, I'm not responsible for what happened to me as a child, but I am responsible for healing myself as an adult. And I take that responsibility. My mental health is 100% mine. But I didn't know I had CPTSD and ADHD. I didn't know my impulsivities were caused from being sexually abused. These things I didn't have that awareness, and so I just like to see a little more compassion from everybody. Um, in the
I
world.
agree. I mean, sorry, fellas, but like women, we need some compassion and empathy, especially the ones who aren't hardcore on either end. You know what I mean? Like, have a little compassion for your fellow men or your women. You don't know what women are going through. You don't know if they had a partner that they loved and then that person cheated on them, gave them STD. They were planning on having a life with this person or something. You don't know if they got cancer. You don't know whatever. They had a horrible childhood. By the time they figured it out, they were past their prime or whatever you want to call it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, you're re-victimizing people who probably were already victims, and now you're making them feel ashamed about their life, you're making them feel guilt, you're making them like having to question, and it's like you don't know anything. I'll just never understand the audacity of pretending like you know somebody that you've never met and you've never interacted with, especially like in a comments thread. Like, I know that's just the internet that does that, but come try that shit to my face. But people don't do that at face value anymore. They get to
Mhm,
hide behind a computer screen and say
mhm,
whatever they want, the most hateful shit that makes you feel like shit. And it's just so weird. Like,
mhm.
I'll never get that. That's part of the problem. That's part of these men that need to do the work. Maybe you should start by like not harassing women online and trying to belittle them and shame them and guilt them. Like, maybe that's where you should start. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, start there.
Instead of pointing outward, go inward, which we talked about this since our first show and the importance of doing the inner work. And when you do the inner work, you're no longer at war with yourself. There's no longer a war outside of yourself. So how do we stop these wars? Well, you stop it by starting with yourself.
Exactly. It's really about self-empowerment though, to men
Mhm,
and women. We're talking about
mhm,
like empowering yourself, healing yourself, like
mhm,
healing the wounds, healing your judgment of people, you know, like go in, and usually the things that you judge in other people, there's some weird projection that's inside
mhm,
of yourself that you're projecting onto somebody else.
mhm.
I've noticed that in my own life. Sometimes if there's
Yeah.
a girl or somebody I don't like, or I'm being really judgy, and then really it's from
Mhm.
some place of insecurity inside of me, some self-hatred inside of me that I'm then projecting onto this person. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? And I've realized
Yeah.
that that's just the
Yeah.
nature of our conscious and subconscious. You know, that's how
And
you
that's why when you pull the subconscious forward and you know yourself, you start to understand these things about yourself. You start to catch yourself as you're even doing it. And then you have the revelation and you move right through it, but you've healed something inside yourself and like, whoa, I didn't even, and blind spots are so common. Like we all have them. So if you start exploring um these blind spots. I mean, we've talked and we're getting at 2 hours, so I won't drag this on too long. But when Sarah and I, we were over on Spotify for a while. My bandwidth just couldn't handle it. But it's actually right a year right now is when I went out kind of on my first kind of date things after, I mean, I've been divorced for a while, but just getting back out there. And it turns out the guy um, was married. And I did not know that, and he told me after we, kind of been with each other for not a while, but anyway, I won't go into that story. But um, I had literally this part of me that was 15 years old come up, and it was a part of myself that I thought I'd healed that. But it took me back to a place where I was literally the impulsivity of a 15, like running away from my dad's house. And I just, like, all this stuff came up for me that I wasn't expecting. And it was like, oh, I have some more healing work before I go out into the world again. I was, because in LA, I had guard up and this, but now that I've been here, I was so truly kind of new and in my, I just felt new. I felt very ready to be out in the world. And what I realized was, oh, I still have a part of me that's like 15 that I have not healed. I was still running from some stuff there. And so that's the power of doing the introspection work. Now it's a year later. So grateful that I have done the work from that because it's good. It's good. But that's the power of the subconscious. Like it's like looking back now, I'm like, I'm so embarrassed because I was pretty. I was pretty upset about it. But at the same time, I realized that the innocence that I had at 15, that hope and wanting to meeting someone and just being like, oh, it was a sign, and uh but it wasn't what was a sign for sure, just not what I thought it was.
But in a weird way, it also brought up something that's kind of beautiful because hope springs eternal. Like here you are thinking that like maybe you probably thought like you would already like close this part off and like you don't really want to be open to like romantic interests at this point. But then there it is, that hope springs eternal. And it kind of also showed you that like there is still that well that's alive inside of you, but it's just like it
Yes.
wasn't that person, like they coerced you, they lied, they tricked you in a weird way, and like that's painful in and of itself. But the fact that you recognize it, because I remember it took you a while. You even told me you were embarrassed. You're like, I'm embarrassed that I'm even hurt this bad, or that it's bringing up this much stuff,
Yeah.
but the fact that you could recognize that and then delve into that, like you leaned into it instead of turning away,
Yes.
blaming the other person. You have to lean into it, and it's uncomfortable and it sucks
Yeah.
and it's not fun, but you have to, because that is the work. You lean into it, you
Yes.
figure out where this is coming from, but then also you get on the other side, you see the beauty, that hope, that little dandelion coming through the crack is
Hmm.
still there and alive, and like it can be broken open, and the flood can, of love can be like released, but it's, now that it needs to be the right person, and there's different steps you have to take to safeguard yourself, because that's a problem with women. We don't, we want to believe so
Hmm.
desperately romantically that like,
Hmm.
but you can't just, unfortunately it's like you have to even you have to like do some detective work with them, because it's like
Hmm.
you
Yeah,
don't
I
know that.
thought, just because I've been away from LA and I changed my life is the way it is, and I'm just in kind of this bubble of an innocence that I hadn't that I
Nature,
hadn't.
protection, innocence,
Hmm.
you've like built this
Yeah,
little protective bubble, and it's a beautiful thing.
but it definitely showed me that the 15-year-old in me, that I thought I'd done that work. So I say that story just to share the power of the work, because it's literally like a year, almost probably to the day, because today was the year anniversary of the Gaza uh,
Mm.
bombing, right?
Oh yeah, I think it was yesterday, the 7th, right? But
Yes.
it's
Okay.
today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, I met him literally like right that day. So it's been a year, and how much I've changed in a year. And that's the power of the work, building new neural pathways.
To where like you're not even mad at this person anymore. It doesn't
No.
even matter, like it's
Mm-mm.
like you're so far beyond that now. But people want to bypass something. They want to skip to that feeling, and it's like you can't. You can bury it, and then it's going to come up again. You're going to
You'll
wonder like
just
why it
attract the
keeps.
same thing.
Exactly. So there is work to
Mhm.
be done on both ends, but like y'all dudes, you got to do the work. I really do feel that though. I'm not blaming all men, but the reason why a lot of these degenerate sexual degeneracy is thriving is because y'all are the ones who are the purveyors. You're the buyers of it. If there wasn't a market for it, it wouldn't be flourishing, but there is a market for it, so it's like, and also like hold your fellow dudes accountable too. That's a big thing,
Mhm.
like hold your men, the dudes in your life accountable, kind of, like
Mhm.
it's, and to have discussions about it. Like I don't know how else it's going to change, because if this shit just stays taboo, then it's never going to change,
Mhm.
so
And having the Madonna horror complex will, even break down and cover that one even more, because I think that's a huge one.
yeah, the
And
ritual, the how it's ages old, millennia old, this wound
mhm.
we should poke around in, and
Yeah.
guys too, it's like,
Yeah, and why archetypical stories matter, and Carl Jung and study some Jung,
yes,
and
please study some
especially
Carl Jung. Jesus.
especially if you know you're not happy. And I think there's a lot of us, and a lot of the human condition is struggling right now. I mean, trauma is in the forefront right now to be looked at and discussed. And there is life after trauma. There absolutely
Definitely.
is. But like you said, you got to lean into it. You gotta question and get curious about why you react the way you do to things and why you feel the way you do about things. And the answers are all on the inside. That I know to
Agreed.
be true. Yeah.
And there's healing, there's beauty, there's love, there's empathy, there's compassion on the other
Yeah.
side of all of this discomfort. You know what I mean? On the other side of
Yeah.
that lies self-acceptance. Change too lies on the other side of it, like real
Mhm.
change, legitimate change.
Mhm.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't Tonight's talk was, I mean, kind of more about, but that's what we're into, because I think Kim and
Mhm.
I are living through a lot of that, just being at the age that we are, the position that we are. We feel a brunt of it, kind of
Mhm.
judgment from men. And really, it's like, I love men and I respect men and I want men to do the work. And I would love to find a
Mhm.
divine, a masculine, feminine union, and when it's the
I
right time.
that's my that's I that would be just to experience that. It's
Also,
something
I'm
that
trying to help out men and women, fellas. I'm trying to help
yeah,
y'all out, like shoot, we all need a little healing and the
yeah,
selfhood path, if you will. Know thyself,
yeah,
go in,
yeah.
internalize that shit. Stop
The magnum
externalizing and
opus.
blaming and judging. Put a little bit of that be self-critical. Bring some of that critical eye in on yourself and start doing the
Mhm.
work. And women need to do it too. We all need to do
Yeah.
it. And that's how society is going to heal.
And
No
we
more
are the
division.
great work, the magnum opus. You are. And there's yeah, there's nothing that um I suppose it's what I've always wanted to experience and uh yeah, I'd love to know what that feels like before I leave this body.
Me
Yeah.
too. Me too, Kim.
Yeah.
Oh, I
I
love you.
love you too.
Oh,
I don't
I
know where
love
that's
you.
coming from.
Oh, don't cry. I don't want to cry. I messed my mascara.
Yeah. I don't know where this is coming from.
Hmm.
I do. I just
As you can tell, it's coming from a big place of love. Like, we're not trying to judge guys or make them feel like shit. We want to heal. We want men to heal so we can like genuinely experience love instead of judgment or coercion, or like
yeah.
we have that want inside of us, and like we want men to meet us where we are. So there's a lot of love. This
Yeah.
is just a beautiful divine feminine, fellas. Like, this is it. We're emotional. It's beautiful. And I love you, Kim.
I love you too. On that note, peace, and we'll see you next week for some more bullshit.
Yeah. Maybe some emotional shit, but either way, we're going to shoot the
All right.
shit.
I
I
love
love
you.
you. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, and by BS, shoot the shit. Yeah, bye.